Get up on the line, what are you doing? So you want someone to take your spot? Careful, Tommy. That's good, mate. Still with me? Yeah. Not a fucking grenade. It's right here. You got room for me?
It is said your life flashes before your eyes when you're about to die. But for me it was the opposite. I had 12 long hours lying bleeding in a dark, muddy bunker as war raged around me, and Tommy worked hard to administer first aid and stabilize me.
Gino, what's your daughter's name?
Ella.
When's your birthday?
I lay there in agony and questioned how I came to be in this dark abyss of pain. I dreamed of heavenly fields like one of my watercolor paintings, out of reach from artillery, drones, tanks, and bullets. Peaceful, idyllic. I thought about the people that care for me, the life I'd lived, and how meeting Tommy would now become divine intervention between living and dying. As I straddled life and death, what was our legacy? What roads led us to be here together at this moment?
When I look back on our family life, in the end Mark had 3 sisters. So he was very much the big brother and these 3 little sisters. So I think that enabled Mark, or forced Mark, to be a little bit more self-sufficient and independent from the family.
He'd have a passion for skateboarding when he was 11, which was good. And he pursued that passion into his adult life.
He got something out of the fact that it was, at that time, a very different activity. It was a path less trodden, and he enjoyed the challenge of that.
He was very artistic. He didn't like school so much. I think he would mess about a bit at school.
Mark's GCSE work was very much about war scenes, so he did definitely have some preoccupation with the military.
He would film all sorts of video scenarios, or several of them would be about war, apart from the other videos he did of his little sister taking drugs.
Growing up as a child, I was very conscious that my father had fought in the war. We used to go up to Scotland at least once a year. Well, my dad would tell Mark some of his experiences that he had during the war. But I know my dad was very concerned about that, because the one thing he said was, I don't want to romanticise war because it's a terrible thing, but I know it did have an influence on Mark.
My whole feelings were that war was so senseless and horrific, and certainly I would never want to have anything to do with it, and certainly not want my sons or daughters to be involved in any wars.
Last couple of cuts now.
Mark went with his next door neighbour, who was a roofer. It was quite hard work, and Mark did like to work out.
Mark used to enjoy the building site. Mark's very comfortable with people who, if you could say, rough and ready or express themselves, or don't worry about the P's and Q's. At the same time, he was happy not necessarily to go along with that, but just to be himself. But he did enjoy that all-male camaraderie.
When he got to 14, that was the age when things started to change, and he became much more difficult, more disobedient.
I think it's only later in life we heard stories of him climbing out his room window going off at night.
We tried to raise him on the Christian principles of love for everybody.
That was a faith that we wanted to have meaning in our children's lives, but not just in we go to church and we do this and we don't do that. It was about looking at life in a wider perspective. They had a duty to look out and look at the world and look at how to make a difference in the world as well. It was decided he wouldn't stay at school for sixth form, that he would do an apprenticeship and he would go to college in Wickham for day release as well. But sadly, or fortunately, he was made redundant, and that was quite a crisis for Mark as to what his life would be after that. And then that was when Mark chose to get involved in our project in Watford, working with the homeless, and I know Mark really enjoyed that. He went to listen to a preacher called Bill Wilson from America, who was working with inner city children in New York. At that point, Mark felt the challenge that this would be something he would like to be involved in. It was quite a life-changing event for Mark and really for us as parents. It was difficult. I have a memory of Mark at the airport disappearing. I remember seeing Mark going, and I knew he wouldn't come back.
Rick and I tried to have children unsuccessfully. We had several miscarriages. It just wasn't supposed to be. So we looked at other options, and adoption was it for us. And we went and we saw him. I was just like, oh my God.
He was cute.
He was cute. I mean, just a little adorable kid. Thomas was 2 at the time when we adopted him. But we call it Gotcha Day because he came to live with us before.
On Gotcha Day, we brought Thomas to 29 Palms. We decided to go for a walk, and then about halfway back, you could tell Thomas was getting a little grumpy, and then all of a sudden he just sits down on the side of the road and refuses to move. I told Thomas, I'll just sit here with you until you're ready to go. So we sat there for maybe 5 minutes, not saying anything, and then just all of a sudden he stood up and started walking. And I got up and followed him. The kind of moral of this story is, like, Thomas has always been stubborn. He interrupted the walk, he sat down, he was taking control of a situation that he thought he needed to take control of. I think this is one of the things you learn when you're in foster care and you have multiple different environments that you're in. You learn how to take control of the situation. Our life at 29 Palms with Thomas was a lot of fun. There were a lot of kids, neighborhood gatherings, and it was the Marine Corps too. He got exposed to all of the military stuff there. He had ADHD. I mean, he was hyperactive and whatever.
Disrupt the class.
And he'd disrupt the class, and so we'd hear about this, and then we would go and talk to the teachers about it, and then we'd get a different message, like, well, yeah, but he's really a good kid, really smart. And then some teachers would say, well, he's going to be a hoodlum and it's too late to do anything about it.
Yep.
And so we kept getting this kind of schizophrenic feedback from the school. I mean, junior high through high school or early high school, those years were pretty tough because we had just moved here, I just retired. The environment between a school in Slidell, Louisiana and in McLean, Virginia is completely different. And so he was adjusting to that.
What I can say, Thomas on the outside is hard-boiled and, a rocket man, and I could do this, do that. But he's got a huge soft heart.
He really is a He's a complicated guy. The interesting thing is that even with a big heart, he got into a lot of fights and liked it, frankly. His buddy was in high school, and they were riding their bikes and got confronted by a couple other folks who started picking on Thomas. And then his buddy, a couple years older than him, stepped up for him and, basically stepped up for Thomas and protected him. And Thomas really remembered that. You know what I mean? He remembered feeling threatened and feeling kind of helpless. And then somebody stepped up for him and protected him. And that's how Thomas kind of became.
Come here every Friday, enjoy a beer, and go home. That's pretty much life now,
Nice.
It's not the same, definitely, when we were younger.
Yeah. We had a good community here, though.
Oh yeah.
I always like the energy of it, because it's like the heart of New York.
Yes.
It's going on around you while you're just skating.
Exactly. You're surrounded by just big trees, and you don't see any buildings.
I just beeline to here every chance I could.
Yeah.
If I had a day off, an afternoon free.
Yeah.
Man, I was just coming here. I just loved it so much.
Yeah.
This was my mecca,
Yeah, exactly. That's how I think about this place,
It's my little
It's
piece
like
of heaven.
Exactly.
Oh, I will never be the same again. Tragic day. Now that will be a cool explosion.
I think the thing that's important to say about that experience, he loved New York and he enjoyed it, but he was also there for 9/11. And he watched 9/11 from the rooftop of the base of the charity that he was working for.
Very influencing, I think, on maybe the future for Mark.
Situations like 9/11 also are a catalyst for making people think about, do we accept what's happening, or do we stand up and do we take a different path than we would hope or want in an ideal world?
Then I went to Tampa, Florida, and there was an inner city church there. The youth pastor had become the senior pastor, Tommy. The church itself was completely hip-hop orientated. They had a breakdance floor in the back. The walls were all graffitied and muraled. It was a really cool, youthful environment. And so for me as a skateboarder, I was like, man, I love this. This is This is a perfect environment to do escape ministry. And so Tommy brought me in to work with the kids and at the same time gave me the freedom to just build a skate park on the church property. Over a couple of years, I fundraised, got the materials, built the skate park, and just built this skate ministry to bring in all these kids and youth from the neighborhood and built it into kind of my own brand. And then from there, I started networking, building skate parks for other people, other nonprofits.
That was lovely to see what we thought was Mark settling and achieving his goals. Mark started looking at life and where he might want to go, even though we had the joy of having our first grandchild, Ella. He was an absolute delight. But I think for Mark, it was a bit unsettling time.
I went back to my inner city roots, kind of working in Memphis, Tennessee with kids there. Brought skateboarding into what was mostly a basketball ministry. They gave me the freedom again to build this half pipe inside this community center, so that's what I did. And just kind of brought together everybody in the neighborhood. If you've ever been to Memphis, it's a pretty divided city. And in my mind, skateboarding was a great way to bring people together. There's not really any racial divide. It's just, let's have fun. No one really cares what your background is.
Mark's always been good with little ones, so being a father was something that was a great delight to him. I know his girls are very precious to him. Having your children doesn't happen in a sort of Disney bubble. It happens in real life. And I think at the same time as Mark was having the wonderful experience of being a father, he was also struggling with his life and his future and his choices. At that point, that's when he started thinking about the military.
I was getting older, so my ability to skate was also waning. And so I sort of felt like it was time to transition out of this sort of youth ministry world.
There were choices Mark was going to have to make that perhaps weren't the most ideal for a father with little ones.
Time for bed, little sheep, little sheep. The whole wide world is going to sleep. You say, bah. Bah. That will do.
Breath in your lungs, stood on your feet. Savor the moment, the sun still shines on you. Smile on your face, dance on the floor. Savor the moment, the moon still beams on you. Love in your heart, hugs real tight. Savor the moment, the stars still twinkle on you. Here today, a shadow tomorrow. Savor the moment, still you.
He got in a lot of trouble in high school. We were definitely knuckleheads. We needed the Marine Corps to shape us.
He went into the Marine Corps. He didn't want to go to college, not just because, he wasn't good academically or didn't have good grades. He wanted to get into the fight, and he didn't want to miss the war.
His father was a colonel in the Marine Corps, so he was living up to and aspiring to the career of his father, and that was part of it. I think he wanted to go out and kick ass.
We got the delayed entry program where we learned the ins and outs of the military and stuff you needed to know to get prepared to go to boot camp.
The Marine Corps was the genesis of friendship and with so many other people that I still have today. It's like a core group of people. We called ourselves the Goon Squad. It was our recruiter that gave us a name because we were the goons.
He was somebody that would be the biggest jokester But then out of nowhere, when you talk about something he was an expert in, he is the professional that knows everything. You gotta shut the fuck up. It's hilarious because he's just a man of extremes is the best thing I could say. And not only that, he's an attention whore. He's the center of attention in that room. He was like the smartest, craziest dude I fucking know.
He was the star of the show. He had leadership qualities. He's one of the best athletes. He was one of the bravest guys.
Thomas was adopted and had struggled with that when he was growing up and was quite rebellious because of it. He was still getting through that when we were in the military. Drinking heavily, having access to alcohol on base whenever he wanted it, and he abused the crap out of that. But he was happy-go-lucky, always fun, never getting angry and throwing fits or anything like that. Just getting so drunk that it's like you're in formation the next day and it's like, dude, you're still drunk. I would say it's even more of a family than family because you don't get to choose your family. We chose each other. And there's never been a moment where it's like, I don't like that guy anymore. Where a lot of people have like this ebbs and flows. We're like, no, we're stuck together. We're not going anywhere. We're all family now.
Who are you as a kid if you're mixed race and like America, like whatever? None of them ever have judged me once. That's a common thing in the military where it's like, well, I don't give a fuck about that. Are you gonna do your shit well? And that's why even people in the military or whatever, some of the least racist and bigoted motherfuckers you ever meet. Why? Because they're just like, I don't care about anything except it's like, are you stupid? You're slow? I'm like, oh, fuck off. But it's like if you quick, you're smart, you know how to do your job, like, oh, you're tight, you know?
Some people would look at Harris and be like, he's not that smart because he's so goofy and he drinks a lot. And it's like, he drinks a lot, I think, to silence that intelligence that's constantly in his head all the time. And I think that also came too from his dad being a colonel. His dad was like, you're not gonna do nothing. Let's read books. And his dad would read to him, and that sparked that thirst for knowledge.
I was more worried about him in garrison because when he deployed, I wasn't worried about him at all because he's with Marines, he's deployed, doesn't have any temptations. You know, I thought he was safer in a combat environment in Afghanistan than he was at Lejeune. He was never closing with the enemy and destroying him. They were chasing him around and shooting at long distances with the, mostly patrolling, living in a hovel for 6 months. He bonded very closely with his fellow Marines. He liked it, but I don't think he ever felt fulfilled from his desire to go to war.
Another good friend of mine, Eugene Mills, a guy I was super close with who I deployed with, he died in country. I actually wonder why I didn't have much of an emotional reaction. And it's because back then in the Marine Corps, we were stripped of a lot of our emotion. Now that I think about it, we were so focused on being warfighters, we couldn't even grieve or even be sad.
So him and I talked a few times on the phone about, his military service and the friends that he had lost. And those were his dark moments whenever I heard about that, of course, because he, told me about having to hold his friend while his friend cried out for his mother when he died, when Thomas was deployed. And so those were the moments I saw that were dark for him, were seeing other people suffer. And I think that's what inspired him to do a lot of the things that he did, because he wanted to take the suffering out of the world, truly.
He got a DUI, I think he might even got 2 DUIs. After you get a DUI, you're in trouble. You get NJP'd, and you have to not drink for a long time. And he couldn't do that. He was, an alcoholic at that point. And because of that, they medically discharged him.
I remember sitting in work and I got an email saying, "Congratulations, you're now part of the American Army." And for a social worker in Middle England, that was a bit of a weird thing to happen to you. Mark being in the military was difficult because Mark was now an American citizen and we were in Britain, and not many people that we could relate to had sons in the military, especially not in the American military. A lot of our friends, quite rightly, were parents who wanted their children to succeed and have good jobs and mortgages and children.
I've never really been motivated by just money or career. I've always been looking for kind of purpose in life. I've always just wanted to live life less ordinary. I got my citizenship in 2011, and a month after that I joined the US Army. Went to basic training January 2012. At 33, I was the eldest in my company. Did 3 years as an infantryman. I was very relieved and glad to get out, but I'm also proud that I served and had some amazing experiences, unique life experiences that I wouldn't get anywhere else in the civilian world. I deployed to Afghanistan for 8 months. Our company was broken up into squad-size elements. My squad was attached to a special forces team near Fort Ghazni, and it was just a remote compound out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by hostile Taliban forces. We had to play defense a lot out there.
I think when you're a son or daughter in deployment, every day it's a burden. You wake up, you have a worry, and you're always looking out for the news as well as to see what's going on. You're always wanting to hear how they are and that they're safe. It was that heartache for oneself. And also we were aware that his little ones were missing him as well, because Ella particularly was of an age to express that she was missing her daddy and wanted her daddy.
Well, definitely having your son on the front line, knowing that he could die any day or be maimed, works on you all the time, so very different from normal life where you don't expect something to happen like that.
I think it makes you appreciate everyone who is any kind of military unit, that they are willing to sacrifice for our freedom and for some, especially Western indulgences really, which we take for granted instead of thinking about how precious they are. And I know it's a big crisis for my mother, looking at how sad the world is at the moment and saying, if your dad was still alive, he wouldn't know why he fought the last war, because we take our freedom so lightly when it has been such a big price was given that we could be here sitting here today.
In the last few months of his time in the military before he left, he was a bit more admitting that he wasn't happy and he wasn't being treated very well in any case.
They gave the orders, set the stage, drew their lines on history's page. They talked in rooms behind closed doors and planned 1,000 silent wars. We learned to march, to fight, to crawl. They trained us hard, we gave our all. We formed a line, we found our stride for each other, side by side. We left our homes, our kids, our wives. We carried hope, we risked our lives through mud and blood and thunder's cry. We fought beneath the foreign sky, not for glory, not for
Mark and his wife were finding life difficult, and so the transition back from deployment back to family life, I think, was difficult for Mark and for Annalise, and was perhaps the beginning of the journey that would lead to them separate at some point. I think when anyone is in that situation, you get very close to the people that you're working with, and you have relationships that you will never experience any other time, because your life isn't on the line in any normal sort of situation that we're used to. And so I think coming back from that is a huge adjustment for all the men, and it takes, I think, a little while for the lads to begin to let go of each other and try and assimilate back into the life that they had before. Some people manage that more successfully than others.
Start taking it from the right, I want you to get down that way. Okay.
A significant character for me in my military years would have been John, who was one of the Special Forces team. He was the weapons sergeant, and I was assigned to his truck. John was like the alpha of their team. He was a wild man, he was a character. He was a lot of fun to be around, but he also knew how to, lay down some hate on the enemy. He was impressive. Sadly, he had his demons. Have you ever seen the documentary Killer Sally? He was in that documentary. He's the son of Sally, and he kind of just had a pretty tragic life from what I understand. I don't know all the ins and outs, but I definitely want to pay him honor and tribute. Mikey posted on Facebook showing that unfortunately John had been murdered. He was killed. I don't know the circumstances behind it, but I just read the newspaper article and it said recently he'd escaped from an ambulance that was taking him to some kind of mental health facility. So sounds like he was homeless and struggling and just not in a good place in life. And the thing I remember from the documentary that he was in was he kind of said he wanted to escape violence, and his whole life was violence and he could never escape it. And so it's quite poignant and I think tragic that that's how his life ended, with violence. But I still nonetheless want to pay the man tribute and honor him and honor his memory, because he was an example of when we say an American hero, he was that example. He deployed like 5 or 6 times, put his life on the line for the rest of us.
Shit, brother. You ever hit on the back side of the hill? They try and fucking run away with spot.
I see veterans like that when they get out and things spiral for them, and I relate to that. That's why guys go back. That's why they go to Ukraine. That's why they go join these teams and put their lives at risk again, because that's where they had brotherhood. That's where they had purpose and meaning, and their lives, for whatever reason, are held together in those moments. And so if you haven't served and you haven't been there, it's probably hard to relate to. And so sadly, a lot of these veterans, when they come home and they leave the military, they're just kind of lost.
He struggled like many other people do, and in a normal way, because you come out of such a hypercharged world. When you get out, you're like dumped in the civilian world. It was hard.
There was a period of time that, but you guys are being really crazy right now. It's not uncommon, because especially if you go through something that crazy, everybody lashes out somehow.
We lost track of him for a couple years, and come to find that he checked himself into a hospital.
He was basically like, I gotta get it together. I gotta do something. And so he's like, I'll just go to school. Well, he went to Nova, straight A's there, transferred to Alabama, straight A's there. And because of that, he could extend his GI Bill to Columbia, where he proceeded to get straight A's there. I found out that instead of being like, oh, hey, I'm in New York, he was like, no, these are my people. I love this place.
He loved New York.
He thought New York was great. I think he appreciated the diversity of people.
He's just a happy-go-lucky guy. Definitely like walking down the street, smoking a blunt, running into famous rappers, trying to freestyle with them and stuff, like going out and seeing the people. That's what he wanted to do.
I stretch my trigger finger and I feel like firing. I feel like firing. Yo, pressure on the beat, cardiac, carbon never union.
You could tell when he was rapping, he was in a state of bliss. All the switches were flipped, all the neurons were firing, and he was happy.
I kind of never really understood both his attraction to rap and rap generally. That's just my generation, right? A lot of the words that some rappers sang were reflections of what Thomas thought. This is really sad because I'm so stupid. He was communicating with me. He was trying to communicate with me by sending me those songs. And I completely missed it until afterwards.
What do you think he was trying to say?
These are my words. Listen to me.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. And I think he was trying to say, this is me, you know?
That's right. This is me.
Yeah.
Like it or not. I'm gonna be me, and I'm gonna do it my way. And he always did.
Never been ordinary, superficial like a vein. My shit be deep like an artery. I feel like firing. I feel like firing. Yo, life pulsing through my vasculature. Just a bitch creeping, but I'm faster than her. And it's a cold world, no matter what you do, you finna catch a bird. I feel like firing. I feel like firing.
COVID really messed him up. He was, especially in New York City, you can order food, booze, anything you want, and never have to even go more than 10 feet to the bathroom or the front door. And that's where he gained a lot of that weight.
His issues with alcohol drove him to try to understand himself better. Later on, as he got older and got treatment and things like that, and while he was on the right kind of meds, he would be able to discipline himself.
Once he had set his sights on, going to Ukraine and, helping with that effort, he changed everything. He was 100 pounds overweight. He did a 60-day fast where he ate nothing, no solids. He only drank electrolytes and bone broth. In 60 days, he lost over 60 pounds.
He would put a flak jacket on and walk around New York in sweatpants. And he did that for about, I want to say 2 months, until he was losing so much weight so rapidly, his body, instead of eating his fat, started eating his muscles. So Tommy is so tenacious, he will hurt himself thinking he can do stuff that he can't do. He's known for that too, in a way. Just pushing himself until something breaks. And so after that, he healed up and he's like, we gotta try something else. And I'm sitting there talking with him, we're playing computer games together. He's like, I've been looking at the Florida Trail. He's like, would you be down to do that? I was like, hell yeah, that sounds awesome.
Give me your synopsis of the last 2 miles through that forest. This forest, by the way. This creepy, crawly, swampy forest. First, I lost my leg and my shoe. And then I walked exactly 1 mile through fucking spider webs. Every 20 feet. But I'm fucking zen as fuck right now. Proud of you. Fucking zen right now. Fucking made it. That was rough.
I had to keep telling him the entire time, dude, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You gotta slow down. You're gonna hurt yourself. About 350 miles in, he stepped over a log, stepped on a cypress root, and his already stressed ankle just completely rolled. And that was it. And he was crushed again. He was like, I'm trying so hard. And every time I keep trying, something comes, he's like, I'm not good enough. I just must be not good enough. And of course he's good enough. He's just gets so caught up in the emotion and the excitement of what he's trying to do that everything else, caution, goes to the wind.
He definitely had some rough spots, and I know going to Ukraine and like preparing for that was something that kind of like brought him out of like a rut, you know?
When I saw him, he had lost so much weight. I mean, he probably lost like 100 and something pounds to be able to go and do that.
We said, don't go.
We had learned by then that he does things his own way, and he wants to do this, that he's going to go do it. And after that, it just became, a conversation about how to, take care of himself and help him get the right gear and, supporting him, basically.
It was about the innocence of people out there being in pain and hurting, and him wanting to do that. I mean, he's done that his entire life. And so this was just another one of those causes.
If Thomas was sitting here now, what would you say to him?
Oh my gosh. That's so tough. It's gonna make me cry. Ugh. Well, I would have told him not to go. That's the first thing I would have said. But I would have told him that I loved him. Like a brother. He really was. We were so close. And I wish I had told him that he was so smart and he was so loved by so many people.
Soldier unseen, but for my heart, no medal needed, pressed close to my breast, for those scars so veiled I see, and brothers fallen silent, yet cry still loud, for they echo in your eyes. So hide your valor, drink up your pain, for those scars so veiled I see. Carry those memories, a flame lit within. It won't consume you, though anchored deep, for those scars so veiled I see. Your heart still beats, strength still resides, that band still tightly bound, they're still with you and you with me, for those scars so veiled I see. And brothers fall in silent, yet cry still out, for they echo in your eyes. So hide your valor, drink up your pain, for those scars so veiled I see.
War with Ukraine relates back to what happened in the Second World War, when they had to be a line drawn with Hitler. This particular instance with Putin and the Ukraine is very much about making a stand rather than looking at a decimated Europe and wishing that they'd done something earlier.
Ukraine wasn't something that was particularly on my radar or I knew much about. It was only with watching the news and seeing the damage they were doing, how they were attacking cities surrounding Kyiv, basically at the end of the day killing civilians, And there was one news article in particular that I screenshotted a picture of this like 12-year-old girl called Polina, dyed pink hair, looked like she could have been my daughter, you know, just this sweet, innocent girl, been killed with her family trying to flee Kyiv. And so I saw that, and that in particular just sort of struck me. I think because I've got 2 daughters, right? It struck me that this is just wrong. Like, this is just completely out of order. And I think that was really the turning point for me to where I really started paying attention and like got angry about it. Working with youth and kids my whole 20s, I'm quite passionate about defending children in particular, child abuse and all that kind of shit. Like, I got no tolerance for it. So the idea of anyone hurting my own children, man, there's no telling what I would do to somebody, right? So I just kind of apply that same logic to somebody hurting somebody else's child. I can't stomach it. It's about as evil as you can get to hurt a defenseless child. So as a man, as a father, I'm not going to tolerate it. I'm going to do what I can to stop that shit.
Some of that goes back to 9/11 again. Mark's been in places and seen things and seen the impact of, I suppose, politics, different worldviews, different agendas. And I appreciate that Mark knew he had the skills that were required because he'd been in the army, and that this was something that he could offer.
If you think about Hitler and the Nazis, it's probably most people understand good versus evil in that scenario, and for me and most guys that go over to fight, it's the same kind of scenario. This is good versus evil. It's a lot more black and white. Like when we went to Afghanistan or Iraq, a lot of guys were like, yeah, I don't really know what we did, or it's a little bit more ambiguous. You can argue these things. Whereas with Russia invading Ukraine, it's a lot more black and white. This is good versus evil. This is a classic showdown. There's a lot less ambiguity about it. If you look at anything under Russian rule, it doesn't prosper. People don't prosper. Humanity and culture doesn't prosper. And you look at the difference. One is very European, very free, very open, culture, arts, restaurants, good life, people are happy, they're free to do what they want kind of thing. And then you get on the Russian side, what do they have? They have suffering, really, is the bottom line. The hardest challenge is just the mental hurdle of, in your head, you're like, you think, I can do this. And then you start questioning yourself. You're like, am I really gonna do this? Or am I just in this fantasy that I've created for myself that I think I can go and still do this? Bear in mind, I got out of the military in 2015. So it's been a few years since I was an infantryman. I'm now in my 40s, so I'm not as youthful as I was. Am I really gonna do this? You have to answer that and be like, yeah, I'm gonna do this, and then you commit to it. I start buying equipment, buy uniforms, boots, whatever. Then you buy the plane ticket, and then you buy the train ticket. And it's like, all right, it's game on. I'm doing this. I'm committed now, and off you go.
I was very distraught knowing Mark had chosen to go to Ukraine. I think when Mark was in the army and he had to go on deployment, one accepts that, well, you're in the army. Deployment is something that's part of the contract. But going voluntarily when you don't need to put yourself at risk, I found that a lot more upsetting. But again, if that was what Mark wanted to do, then that was something that we had to accept and try and support him and not burden him with our own feelings.
When I first got across the border, they took me to a school. It was just me and there's one Albanian guy there. He couldn't speak much English, and the Ukrainians that dropped us off all disappeared for the night. So it was just me and him in this kind of abandoned school. In the middle of the night, this American guy joined us. And so it was actually his second time going. And so immediately, me and Doc, he went by Doc, made friends. And he was from 50-50 team. And so he was like, hey bro, you can join my team. I got you, I've been through this before, I can tell you what's going to happen. And as soon as I met him, it was just like such a relief. I was committed to him at that point. Me and him became sort of best buddies. Went through the interviews. Sure enough, I was approved to go over to the GER side with Doc. We were then transported to the training base in WWII. This is where I first met everyone that eventually became Rogue Team.
A month or so before I got there, the place was hit by a bunch of missiles. We'd walk to the chow hall every day past this destroyed building. Apparently a lot of casualties were there, which is like just a hit of reality right away, where you just cross the Polish border and you're like, oh wow, so people are getting killed before they even get to the war. Rogue Team was 90% US Marines.
They were die-hard Marines, and one in particular, Zulu, he was the alpha of the pack, and you didn't want to piss him off. You know, he would let you know real quick if you pissed him off.
I came to Ukraine May of 2022. Beginning of June, went to the training center in WWII and met up with like our original crew. Some good dudes. Myself and Phoenix started putting this team together.
Phoenix, probably one of the best leaders I've ever had in my entire life.
He did a lot of the work as the team leader, and I was sort of the not so silent partner in the background, trying to shape the culture of the team.
Kiwi, he was also Marine. He would always be like,
No. He's not. Zulu doesn't speak English. Zulu speaks Marine.
Phoenix and I were on the same page with our vision for what the team should be. We wanted it to mirror as closely the culture of professionalism and capability and competence that we had and saw exhibited in the Marine Corps. Physically fit, mentally mature, and professionally competent.
A young Ukrainian commander came that was forming a new team. He came from Kyiv to recruit, and he came to the base and he ran a selection course, and all those guys that had already been there got to run the selection. Doc made it clear already to the team, so he wasn't interested. I said, I want to go with Doc. And so they wouldn't even let me and Doc train or do selection anyway, so we were just sort of ostracized from the rest of them. They ran their selection. He picked the guys that he wanted for the team, and then he had a van ready to go to take them to Kyiv, which was the next phase. And so Doc just petitioned him and the other commanders and First Sergeant and was like, hey, please just take us to Kyiv. I've got commanders there that will take me back on the team. They let him get in the van to go, and at the same time they took me because I'd attached myself to Doc. And so we rode out to Kyiv with these guys, and once we got to Kyiv, we went to the HQ there. Doc was still trying to figure out getting back on his team. He was having struggles communicating, getting a hold of anyone. The Ukrainian commander came to me and he was like, you're joining our team. And he just kind of poached me and just sort of, it was like a voluntold scenario. You're on our team. It was really tough the first time I went to Ukraine, trying to find my place within that team, at least in the early days.
He always felt that he wasn't as welcome to Rogue Team as other people because he didn't have to go through the selection process in WWII. There was a little bit of animosity with that at first, but he proved himself, and I don't think anybody had any issues with him.
But I think with time, they could see that, well, for one, my PT was fine because that's such a big deal in the military, right? And for these guys, like, as long as you could run, ruck, shoot, they're happy with it. If you can perform your basic grunt duties, then that's impressive enough for them. They're not going to give you a hard time.
Bummed around Kyiv, doing like training stuff, picking up new guys. Finally got a full-fledged operational team going.
We had to pretty much get all our own equipment, so everybody was funding themselves. So we're buying all our own gear, our own attachments. The only thing we really were issued were our weapons and ammo. Everything else was on us. And at the time, we were even searching for our own vehicles. We spent about 3 weeks trying to get squared away in Kyiv, and all of us are frustrated as hell because we just want to go. We want to go down range. But it was good because we bonded as a team. We were training, we were running maneuvers and stuff. I think it was important.
Yeah, we all went down to Zaporizhia and then ran those amphibious operations on Middle Road.
I found Doc again. So 50-50 team was actually deployed down there, and we were put in a building that had 3 or 4 different Legion teams. There was a Belarus team, a Georgian team, and we were all in this building together, basically training and gearing up.
We were supposed to liberate the nuclear power plant.
That involved having to cross the Dnipro River in boats and do beach assaults. It was a coordinated effort with the Ukrainian military, Ukrainian special forces, all different Ukrainian elements plus the Legion elements that we had. Planned a big joint mission with hundreds of guys that would cross at night in these boats. It would have been the largest amphibious assault since D-Day in Europe if we'd pulled it off. While we were in Zaporizhzhia, 50-50 team went out. They took some pretty heavy contact, assaulting some trenches, and a lot of guys got pretty messed up, including Doc.
Hike got messed up. He got shot at by a tank. He was in so much pain in the back of the pickup truck taking him to the aid station that he wanted them to kill him. He got their name because there was 2 half teams that became one, but it became a metaphor around the rest of the Legion that because they took so many casualties on every mission that they went on, it was 50-50.
The first time we went out was daytime.
We could see these 4 helicopters flying around, so it was like, oh, okay, they know that people are coming.
They were like, we're not going to just go out on the water. We'd just be sitting ducks, especially in inflatable boats. So after that, everything was at night. But even with that first mission, although we didn't cross the river, the Russians figured out where we were with the drones, and we started taking artillery. We had no transport arranged, so we just had to sit it out. So, we're breaking into abandoned buildings, trying to find basements to take cover in and stuff. They issued us night vision, and so we started doing it, practicing and training to do night operations.
We had like 65 kilograms worth of stuff on our back, and then our weapons, and then our body armor with all of our ammunition. The mission was we get to Enerhodar, and we secure a foothold, and we hold it for however long it takes until reinforcements arrive, or I guess we die.
Last time we went out, for example, we sat out on the water for a couple of hours waiting for our command to show up, and we didn't know at the time, but supposedly one of the boats sank and a Ukrainian guy unfortunately drowned, so they were dealing with all that, which delayed us. Finally we start going out. It was just really cool to see all the Ukrainian artillery shooting over our head and all the Russian artillery shooting over our head, and you're in the middle of that and you think, hey, it's a pretty safe area, they're hitting the opposite sides of the river. And then they shot up these star flares right when all of our boats stopped moving. We were just illuminated, 100% illuminated. And I was like, oh shit, this isn't good. The Zodiacs and the gunboats just hit it, going upriver, and then stopped. And as soon as we stopped, the area that we were just got pounded with artillery. And where we were, then the cluster bombs come, and then we moved, and the cluster bombs, and so it's like that. They just called it off, and we went back to shore, and the cluster bombs just kind of followed us all the way back. It's too cold to do this. We keep landing in the same spot. There's a fucking tank there. Like, this is just not gonna happen. I was never a strong swimmer, so I was always just scared of the boat ops. You can shoot me, blow me up, whatever, but I just did not want to drown. Interesting to me is we went out one night to do kind of a hit and run mission, kind of like a drive-by in boats, and they just sort of sprayed the Russian position on the other side. And I remember that night because I was with Bravo team and the Alpha team and Zulu and all those guys were in the other boat, and I was talking to Zulu and I'm just like, man, I suck at swimming and all the rest of it. And he's like, Gino, I got you, man. Like if your boat's sinking, I will jump in the water to come rescue you. And that always stuck with me. I don't know, I was like, oh, Zulu loves me. To have a guy like that be like, hey, I got your back. Like it was really quite meaningful and powerful to me. Every time we go out on an op, like you get wet and you're freezing cold, and I would come back and I'd be like, all right, I'm done. This is bullshit. I'm never doing this again. You just sort of get over it, and then a couple of days later, they're like, all right, we're going back again. You're like, okay. And you go back out again, and then you're like, oh, I quit. This sucks. And then you go back out again.
It would have been fucking glorious. We probably would have all died. But I don't think we would have sustained crippling casualties right away. I think we would have made it pretty damn deep into that little area. No shot that we were taking that power plant back. No shot that once we established a foothold, we were receiving any kind of reinforcements. But we all knew that before we went. So suicide ops, yeah, that's exactly what they were. We kept trying to beat out an exfil plan or a Kasevak plan from them, and it just became more clear each iteration of those boat missions that they didn't have one, simply put.
So when you leave, it almost feels like a small betrayal to some degree. I'm abandoning you, I'm leaving you in the shit, and I'm going back to safety. And so I think you just constantly have this pull and this tug of like, I belong with my team, I haven't fulfilled my responsibility as long as the war is continuing to go on. I came back to the States. I had rentals to deal with, I had a business that needed attention, just stupid life stuff I had to take care of. I also wanted to see my family and my kids. That was important, of course. I remember texting with Seabass because he left to go take care of his mother because she had cancer or something. She was in hospital. So Seabass had to leave the team and go back to Poland.
He was so humble about it, where he thought he was abandoning the team, and we all said to him, was like, listen, like I'm going home to get drunk and see my dog. You're going home to go take care of your sick mother.
He's like, yeah, I'm probably not gonna go back. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I go back either. But if I do, probably be in the spring. And he's like saying the same kind of thing. Fast forward, I find out later, Seabass actually did come back.
For some reason, he felt like he wasn't welcome back. He went back to his old team. And unfortunately, that old team had a bunch of serious casualties and a bunch of KIA in Bakhmut. He was wounded in the head, and he held on for a few days, for a few weeks actually, and ended up succumbing to his wounds.
Which just, it's just tragic.
Well, it was absolutely devastating for me. It was the first time someone had died where I kind of like broke down inside, internally broke down.
He did go back to our team, and I felt like if he had, his chances of survival would have been higher because it was a solid team. I knew he'd gone to Poland for his mum to take care of her because she was sick, and so I felt bad for his mother.
Although when Matt was in deployment it was difficult, so when Matt went to Ukraine I was very distraught. In order to get comfort I went into one of our older churches in the area. It was lovely because there was no one else in the church, it was just me. I had the most amazing experience of knowing that the church was full of centuries of women who sent their sons and their husbands and their loved ones to war. It was like their love and their tears gathered me up to be with them, and I'm still part of them, and there's still a comfort. We need to gain strength from one another.
The hardest part about going, I think I was just process, will I see my friends again, will I see my family again, and in particular, of course, will I see my kids again? The risk and the danger is real. Like if you want to use the word joke, we joke that it's not if you'll get hurt or killed, but when. You have to really have weighed up and decided that you're okay with not coming home. But the reality of that is, you know, that's going to hurt people you care about, and of course you don't want to hurt people you care about. My eldest daughter, she really struggled with it, so she wrote me an email. I think when I was there the first time, it was really difficult for me to read. I pride myself that even though I don't live in the same home, that I'm still close to them. They still know I love them, I still care about them, I still put them first. So I think it was really difficult to feel like I let her down, that she felt distanced by my decisions, that I wasn't communicating enough, that she felt separated. She felt this separation from me. I had to step up my communication with her and talk it through and spend more time with her, flew her out to the States, have some good daddy-daughter time and just, some healing, because she's still dealing with recovering from the army years, seeing me and my ex fighting and our divorce and all the rest of it. So I think it raises fears in her, me going back to Ukraine. Never mind the fact I might get killed out there. At some point I decided I was going to go back again. I was still hungry to be involved and didn't feel like I'd done enough. But I also had a limited window because I planned to see my kids in England and my family. And so I just had kind of this 2-month window. And I was like, okay, 2 months is a pretty solid amount of time. However, I got there and the HQ had decided they were going to do all these background checks that they hadn't done before. And for whatever reason, it was like a month-long process. I was able to train with the team while they were in Kyiv, but they then deployed to Bakhmut, and I wasn't able to go with them because my background check hadn't come through, even though I'd been on the team before. I was left, and so I just rented an Airbnb. Food was cheap, so I could eat at a good restaurant every night. I got talking with the realtor, and she's like, "Oh, the guy who owns the property is real interested to talk to you. He's interested in supporting the military and so forth." Gave me a great deal. His name is Alexander, but he was a Ukrainian tennis pro. At the peak of his career, he was ranked number 12 in the world. We just kind of hit it off and made friends. We started to just hang out a little bit here and there, and he would take me to the speakeasies, because there's a curfew. Everything in Kyiv shuts down at 11. No one's supposed to be on the streets.
I was really interested myself because firstly thankful for people that come to help our country that don't have to be here, and they don't get paid much money or anything, so it's really not about the money. So I wanted to meet, and then we met and hanged out and got friends.
A pretty fun, fascinating time in Kyiv when I was trapped there, because I got to see a lot more of it and meet a lot of Ukrainians and sort of ingrain myself within the society there.
It's a beautiful city, also quite modern. We have really good restaurants, we have nice places. People who would come here, they really get surprised.
I was just hovering around Kyiv, just doing touristy things, hanging out, working out, eating, just chilling by myself. I went to this bar called the Drunk Cherry Bar, and I met an American there called Nate. He was just volunteering with NGOs, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go do this camo net building with this NGO, just kind of volunteer. You never know, might meet some girls. Why don't you come with me?" So me and him just get involved, and then sure enough, there's a couple of girls. We just sit down and start talking to them, just having fun, joking around while we're building the camo nets. And the one I'm talking to, her name is Anna. We just kind of hit it off and just joking about, she's gonna give me a prize for doing a great job on the camo nets.
He was very ambitious about making these things right in huge quantity at once. And we had a chat, and then he got my number. And then the next day we had kind of a date, I guess. And there was air defense working. I was scared because I used to be scared of everything exploding and so on, loud noises. Mark didn't even turn his head to the sound of explosion, and it was so like wow. This was the understanding you've seen some shit, you know.
Good thing with Anna is she kind of gave me insight into the Ukrainian mindset, and I could ask her questions about Ukraine and their culture and what they think about things, and she was really, for me, kind of a spokesperson, like this ambassador of Ukraine that really gave me insight that I didn't otherwise have as a Westerner.
I'm very, very grateful because I don't know, I cannot imagine what courage do you have inside to go on the war that is not even yours. So I want to believe that you are the one who understands what evil is, and if it's unpunished, it will just spread and become stronger and stronger.
Most guys that go out there end up falling in love with these Ukrainian girls, and most of them end up with girlfriends. I met Anna, we just naturally clicked. She just kind of became my girlfriend while I was there. We sort of had this understanding, it's like war boyfriend, war girlfriend. This is a temporary situation, I'm probably not going to be there forever, and she had no interest in leaving Ukraine. And so we sort of had this understanding the whole time, but nonetheless, we genuinely cared about each other and were there for each other through it. I know she was struggling a lot with what was going on.
I don't really remember myself before the war, because I try to recall, I try hard, but I don't know what kind of person I used to be. What were my values, what I was planning, what were my dreams and everything. You know, you have this feeling like death is going around you, and there will be, not might be, but will be a moment when it knocks your door. At some point, I had to accept that everyone I love, everyone I care about, could be dead in a second. It was a nice surprise. I can still fall in love during this whole nightmare. It was, you know, like balancing, because here is the emptiness and the darkness, and here is something beautiful. Me and Mark, we started to watch pottery show, and then we actually went to pottery classes. And I remember we went out of Kiev to the pines and the river, and it was beautiful there. Just very peaceful, like you are not here. It was a good moment to forget, as far as you can forget. There is a big park, there are hammocks, and we were lying in hammocks and then having dinner in the garden, and then I knew Mark was going alone without me to that park to have a chill in the pool while I was working. So I believe it's a nice park. There was an exhibition of butterflies. He was like a child. This might be the moment I saw him in the pure happiness. And butterfly was sitting right on his head.
The Moosemobile, the last time I went, became mine, and she loved driving in that thing. Like, it was this beat up, painted green, just drive on the wrong side of the road. There's no seats in the back, kind of just beat up war wagon. But she loved being in that thing. But she would call it a Korch.
Korch is a fucked up car, worn out, and this car is meant to be dead. And it was the best car ever, because it was all like, it was the sound of disaster. And when we were going in the streets, everyone was looking at us, everyone, because it was all shaking, all doing weird sounds.
And she says it's actually like a beautiful thing. you know, this like this old beat up thing that still has a purpose and it still can serve. I was like, oh, you mean like me? But I thought it was such a good analogy about anybody or any of us that were trying to come over there and serve. And you know, a lot of us are veterans, our prime days in the military have passed, but it's like, nah, you still kind of got a second lease on life. You can still have a purpose and offer something.
Some overnight stuff, some raids, things like that. Myself and a couple other guys, it was primarily sniper operations. The first time, we had a lot more freedom of movement inside of the city. We had a lot more ground that was under our control. Got to do some great work at good distances. Then the second time that we went back to Bakhmut, I didn't run one proper sniper mission. There was no long range work even available anymore. All the buildings were destroyed. We'd been pushed back right up to the very entrance to the city.
Bakhmut was just a couple blocks.
There are people who just watching the city being erased, just not exist anymore. So you have no home at all.
I left. I was like, there was a mission they wanted us to run, and I talked to the other snipers and the other teams, and they're like, man, there are no firing positions. There is no cover, concealment, or ability to camouflage in this area. We're all gonna go out, and I was like, and we're not gonna kill a single fucking Russian. They want us to go to this whatever position. I go, and we're not gonna have any good terrain. I said we're gonna end up probably running around that city for 12 hours, getting chased by artillery, mortars, drones, VDV trying to assault your positions, and you know, it's lucky that we didn't lose anybody.
Our buildings was getting bracketed with RPGs.
We gotta go. Dave, we're going.
We had a very organized exfil bounding across danger zones.
The whole team came back. You know, we had some minor injuries and stuff like that. The guys that didn't go didn't regret not going. The guys that went didn't regret going.
Go!
Slowly over the course of the next month, everybody just, with the exception of 3 dudes, everybody sort of went their own separate ways. Whether it was back to the States, onto a different team, or something like that.
So I got sent to the outskirts of Bakhmut to join the team, and the majority of the guys had quit or left at that point. In the wake of them leaving, Super Dave stepped up as the team leader.
Man, I fucking love Super Dave.
Another phenomenal leader.
He's definitely lived up to his moniker. Former Army Ranger, truly embodiment of the ideology of a silent professional.
If he says something, there's no argument. Even if you don't know why, you have faith in the fact that if Super Dave says that's the good option, then that's the damn good option.
And so we were doing QRF, supporting the guys that were on the front. If they needed a team to come in and pull anybody out, that was our role. Dave went in one night on a mission with another team, and he took Nova, who was our interpreter / medic. Nova's just a young guy, early 20s, Ukrainian. But long story short, he actually got shot in the back that night, and his plate saved him. So he just had a big bruise on his back, and that was all the damage that was done. Put a hole in his body armor. I got really sick while I was there the last week or two, and then pretty much it was time for me to leave. And so I flew, got the train out of there, then flew to Scotland to go meet my parents and actually surprise my granny, when I haven't seen her in 13 years or something. And just spent some quality time with my parents in Scotland and Dundee and Edinburgh. I had all the experience, I knew all the places, I felt comfortable going now, it's like old news. So this is my 3rd time going back out there. Same routine, fly into Warsaw, get a train, cross the border. My transfer station in Poland stopped around midnight at this little remote rural town. I got off the train, I'm just hovering around waiting for about an hour or so, and I see another guy that's just kind of in like Bermuda shorts and a t-shirt, and he's got military bags with him, and I'm like, oh, that's an American right there for sure. So we sort of eye each other up, give each other a nod. Are you trying to join the Legion? He's like, yeah, I'm on my way. I'm like, oh, cool. Have you got a team you're joining? He's like, yeah, I'm joining Rogue Team. I'm like, Rogue Team? That's my team. Which compartment are you in? He's like, oh, I'm in 14. I'm like, 14? I'm in 14. For me, it was like this divine appointment. I just happened to meet this guy, Tommy. Kind of took him under my wing, the same as Doc did for me the first time I went. The whole train journey there, we're just sort of talking back and forth. I'm explaining as much as I can. Once we got into Kyiv, Anna met us off the train, and I went my separate ways with her. Tommy went off with Teddy, who was from Uruguay. He was coming to the end of his tour and about to head home. But the four of us all went hung out. We had a good time. Tommy, yeah, he liked to drink. I figured that out real quick.
It's very easy to talk with, and when you talk to him, he's all in your attention, and he's watching at you, looking at you like you are right now, you are the most important person.
He became like my best friend when I was in Ukraine. He was just super faithful, loyal friend. Everything we did, we just kind of did together.
A lot of the ways, like the Goon Squad was family. He's like, I found another family, guys. There's more of us.
Eventually went on a date with Katerina, and he was telling me about it. They hung out at a train station, just talking the whole time. It's hard for them to separate and go their own separate ways. It felt so good because he didn't plan to over there meet anybody. And he met this girl, and he was mad in love with her.
When I sit in the train, he messaged me that really 1 hour was enough for being loved. You know, Tom with me was so gentle and kind. All the time when we was next together, we talk about our future, we talk about where we will live, about our marriage, how we will name our children and everything else. Yeah.
We went to kind of a training camp, like at a secret location, did some training there for several weeks with the rest of the squadron, which was really good training. It was super basic conditions, no running water, eating borscht every day kind of thing. That was pretty intense, but a great introduction for Tommy especially, and Missouri, who was the other new guy, onto the team with the guys that had been around for a while and already pretty battle-hardened.
Shenanigans! Hillbilly shit, boy! That's what you get when you try and take a shortcut to the road.
We transitioned out of the camp back to Kyiv to have a little downtime, so I got to spend a couple of weeks with Anna, and you know, we went away. It was kind of a quiet before the storm, but knowing that we're about to deploy, and we went east to Kupyansk, which was where the Russians were really pushing.
Road to Kupyansk. Dead sunflowers. Indicative of our future. There's our pilot. Our faithful steed clickety-clacking down the trail. And our fearless warriors ahead of us, strapped to the teeth, ready to kill. Yeah. Kupyansk, summer 23. Yeah. Time will pass and we'll endure for love's resilience forever pure. Yeah, I'm gonna say that again. The only rainbows I fuck with are the ones in my goddamn Lucky Charms.
Me and Tommy pretty much chose to nest together. We had a team house near the front. We were so excited just to drive out to the stores and buy all this stuff, come back and make this room how we wanted it.
And we'll endure for love's resilience forever pure.
Rolling down the road in fucked up Humvees, trying to drive with janky MVGs. Probably gonna run off the road and hit a tree. Doesn't matter, cause I can't fucking see. Didn't go on the cause I fucked up my ankle. I'm left home and I'm in the dark all alone. I fucked up some, that's okay. Doesn't really matter anyway. It's a fucked up Our PPE prevents proper engagement.
We would go stay in abandoned houses that were a lot closer to the front or within a couple of miles of the front kind of thing. We would just stage there and you were just on standby. If anything bad happened to the guys going in, you were sent in to extract them. Unfortunately, we did actually have to go in. A vehicle got hit with artillery as soon as they'd arrived at their drop-off point, and 2 of the guys got killed and 1 of them got pretty badly injured. So we were sent in to pull them out and extract them. We had that knowledge and awareness of how dangerous it was, and then a few nights later it was our turn to infill and go into those same trenches and the same road and the same location. We had Ukrainians actually drive us in at night. Our guy had got scared, so he dropped us off way short of where we were supposed to get dropped off. And then finally it's time for us to push out. And we had like a 3 or 4 kilometer march. The exact position on the trench where we were sent was kind of an exposed trench line that jutted out from the rest. We could see that the Russians had been taking positions kind of north and south of where we were going to get sent in.
There was some confusion about how to find the place. It took unnecessarily long time to get there. It was already morning light when we got there.
In all these broken branches, you can tell it's just been shelled to death already. There's like the body of a dead Ukrainian just sort of over yonder that we had to pass as we came into the entrance of the trench. Just all disheveled, just worn out, just carrying all this weight. Get into this trench position and it's just like this little U-shape trench. Me, Tommy, Missouri and Mark went to the left and the rest of the guys went to the right. Tommy goes right up to the front of that. He's got the machine gun, his beloved Lana, he called it. It was his MG5, like German machine gun. He takes a position quite far up front and he's there with the Ukrainian, and then sort of back a little bit, and to the left there's a little dugout area where Mark is. Tommy at the front, he's like, oh, and there's a dead Russian over there, just like stone's throw from where we are. I'm like, oh damn, they got that close. From there, I don't know why I was in this false sense of security, like not expecting too much, like at least not first thing in the morning. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning or something. I go get some M&Ms and sort of handing them out to Tommy and the other Ukrainian at the front. Everyone's taking their positions, and all of a sudden Tommy just lets rip on the machine gun and just fires it. I'm like, bro, what you doing? I'm almost mad at him for making me jump because he just started shooting his machine gun. He's like, there was one crawling up right there, I saw him. So I just put my sight on his head and pulled the trigger.
Tommy spotted them, engaged them at first, crucial at the point. They were close.
Immediately after that, it's just like crack, crack, crack. Bullets start coming in. So pretty much what we didn't know until that moment was the Russians had made their way all the way up the tree line within 20 meters of us. I'm up there in the front with my rifle shooting back at the Ukrainian with his AK-47, Tommy on his machine gun. And eventually, at some point it slowed down. The Ukrainian commander for the trench itself was sort of telling us to conserve ammo, and that was kind of his theme for the rest of the day.
Ceasefire?
Weird negotiations going on in between Ukrainians and Russians. Them wanting us to surrender, and Ukrainians refused.
But then we had to deal with kamikaze drones, and so the Ukrainian commander was like, hey, get back under cover, because we were in an exposed area of the trench right at the front.
Fuck, that's close. That's on the other hole.
It went quiet for a little bit, some drones, whatever. There's a lull. Tom's like, oh, I'm going to take a break. So he goes back to the rear. He went and actually cleaned a 240 that the Ukrainians had that was just filthy and it was jammed and it wasn't working. So he got that gun back up. Another wave came in of troops and it kicked off again.
Mark. Yeah, one more. Дрон!
Підар тільки що дроном проти нас летає. Вони по нас РПГ зі цепцями. Дрон, дрон!
Grenades, I think. If one rolls in here, it will come straight in. Grenade! Draw! Draw!
At some point, they call for Tommy to conserve ammo. So I go switch positions with him. So now I'm in that little left dugout with Mark. Missouri and Tommy are kind of pulled back where I've been previously, so we've sort of flip-flop positions now, so they're more in the rear. It gives me confidence while I'm there because I've got Mark on my left and I know they're sort of on my right, and I'm like, Tommy, you ready if they come down that trench? Because I'm expecting them to overrun us at any moment.
That's grenade.
A little piece of wood or something hit me, gave me a bit of a fat lip and a bit of a black eye, but no shrapnel or anything. But Mark got something hit him in the neck, so he's like, oh shit, I'm here. He goes to the rear, so now I'm just in that little dugout by myself, sort of covering two sectors of fire, to the left and to the right, feeling really exposed.
You still with me? Yeah. It's another fucking grenade. Hey, be ready for them. They're trying to move up on this side. Fucking the right there. He's right here.
Tommy and Missouri is still under the cover bit. I'm increasingly getting machine gun fire that seemed like it would spot on my position. They had me suppressed, like they knew where I was. And so I'm sort of like, shit, trying to cover both sides. In the end, they're like, come back under cover.
You got room for me?
I couldn't believe the pain, but I knew I was out of the fight. I instantly knew I couldn't function, like I couldn't, I was done.
I am medic. Help. Someone needs to get help. Help.
My foot was just like on fire. It hit me in my arm and my lower back too, kind of peppered my whole leg and through my butt and everything.
Gino, where you hit? Gino, you put strength on yourself.
You're gonna fucking grenade all of us if you guys don't fucking...
Watch the avenue of approach down there. Gino's got shrapnel. Get us from the top. Gino, what's your daughter's name? When's your birthday? November 29th. Are you the last man up there? Yes. Affirmative.
He puts like a high and tight tourniquet on my thigh to stop the bleeding. It was probably more painful than the wound itself, the damn tourniquet.
Drag out. Drag out. Push. 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 Yeah, Lana. Drop this magazine. Me. Buddy, I need you. Get in here.
Him and a Ukrainian guy that had joined our team helped sort of get me into this one bunker room that we had. It's pretty dark, like you can't see much. Muddy, lined with plastic, mice running around, you can hear them behind the walls. I feel bad because I probably bled all over the sleeping bags that were on the ground there.
How you doing, Gino? Yeah. I can't feel my leg as a fucking tourniquet. Yeah, no, that's all right.
I knew Tommy had the capability to help me, and so I was completely reliant on him to do that, and I knew he would and he could, because he knew all this medical stuff.
Tom. Talk to Gino. Huh? That leg just feels shit with the tourniquet. And what? You have to have a tourniquet? Yes, motherfucker, you're getting a fucking tourniquet. Keep talking. Gino, I just want you to keep talking to me, buddy. Let me check your pulse.
He stayed with me, and he put the tourniquet on me, he packed my wounds. From my point of view, Tommy saved my life and saved my leg. Because if you leave the tourniquet on too long, you'll eventually lose the leg. I couldn't put much energy into anything. I'd lost enough blood to where I just had zero energy. I couldn't really speak a whole lot. It took a lot of energy just to say 2 or 3 words. And so I know I was kind of going, my body was going into shock at that point.
What's your daughter's name, Gino? Eleanor. Huh? Eleanor. Alright.
Because of the pain and because you're not like necessarily completely coherent, you sort of give into it to where you're like, okay, this is my moment. I'm on my way out. Okay. You just accept it.
Can you loosen it now? No. Just one notch? No. Don't mind if you have to shoot.
I think for me it was more the anxiety of not passing away from my wounds, but of being overran and then executed.
How the fuck are we gonna get out of here? It's like wild.
And I knew I couldn't get out of there because it was so difficult to get in to begin with, 3-4 kilometers, and no one was gonna come rescue us till nightfall. So Dave came in at one point and he's like, yeah, I promise you, Gino, we'll get you out of here. I just had 12 hours of lying there in pain, slowly contemplating anything and everything.
You don't have any drugs? No drugs.
Those tank rounds coming and sort of landing on pretty much the roof of where I was at, and things just exploding all around us, and just being like, oh man, I just want this to end. You know, like this is too much at this point. Because I'm useless, I'm vulnerable, I can't fight, I can't help, I'm just a lump. The guys just kept fighting, pushed them back. They didn't overrun us. Somehow they didn't run out of ammo.
I was really proud of how the team acted in this situation. There was no one trying to run away or persuade Dave of doing it. If they come one more time, it's probably down to 84 hand grenades and shovels. It's probably that bad. But there was no despair, there was no we had to run. And in the end it ended up with being the Russians that pleaded to us that we should stop firing.
50-50 came and rescued us. They risked their own lives to come out as QRF. They gave me pain meds and then like, we got you, Gino, we're going to get you out of here, we're going to get you somewhere safe. Oh man, that was just like the biggest relief of my life. I was just so grateful to them.
never been that happy to see them as of that point. We had to take turns in mostly dragging, trying to carry, but mostly dragging, I guess.
They would just rotate out 4 guys at a time. They'd get about 100 meters and then everyone would scream at each other, who's next, who's next. One of the last waves that day, Tommy actually got shot in the arm. So he got shot right in his devil dogs tattoo, which he was super proud of.
He wore it like a badge of honor.
Hell yeah, I got shot in my tattoo. So sick.
Well, because he got injured on the same arc as I did, that actually meant Tommy was going to go to the same hospitals with me, and therefore he was with me through that whole experience, not just the team stuff. We get sent into this field hospital, into like a ward of like 20 other Ukrainians. It was actually, I think, an old school that had been taken over, super basic wheelchair bound, so Tommy's having to push me with his injured arm in a wheelchair to get outside, just to go to the bathroom. It was a nightmare, it was a horrible place to be, and yet at the same time I was so grateful to be there because I got out of the bunker. From the field hospital, me and Tommy ended up getting sent to military hospital in Kharkiv. Nurses and doctors there were super cool. A couple of the guys that were in our trench were in that ward with us, and they said to the other Ukrainians that we saved their lives that day, that if we hadn't been there, that they would have all been killed or overran. For sure our team pushed back the Russians that day, like wave after wave after wave, and they didn't attack it again the next day. One of the same guys came up to me and Tommy, and he was shaking our hands and telling us how grateful he was. So that was a really cool experience. Like, that made you feel like, okay, we achieved something.
I cannot express enough thanks to Tommy for having made the difference between life and death for Mark, binding up his wounds and putting a tourniquet on him.
We obviously had developed a special bond together, and I thought it was wonderful that Mark had Tommy by his side. Tommy was pushing Mark around in a wheelchair. Although we'd never met him, he became a very, very special person to both Mark's dad and I.
And then Anna came out to see me there. You know, of course she was super worried about me. She kind of dropped everything to come out, spend some time, just bring me food, sit in the hospital bed with me, kind of just be sweet and take care of me. But I could see it in her face, like it really weighed on her. She's sensitive, like it affected her, it upset her.
The hospital itself was very hard to experience because it was not only about Mark. There were a lot of our Ukrainian guys that were also injured. They were suffering, but they were always talking about our losses and always talking about their dead brothers in arms.
Tommy definitely kind of spiraled a little bit once we got there. It's like he had this clarity while we were in the trench through those operations. He was there when he needed to be there, and it was almost like now his moment was done. He sort of reverted back, and he went back. He would sit in the hallway, he would just put his headphones in. He loved to listen to his rap, and so he would just sit there and just bop his head and listen to his rap, and he would just drink his vodka.
Mark and Tommy were in the hospital. It was really concerning because it looked like he started a day with a drink and he just got lost in the park near the hospital, and I think he was drinking there.
He conveyed to me on one occasion that he was just bummed. He was like, oh, I got shot, that was cool, for a day. Now I can't go back out again. Now I gotta heal. This sucks. Reminiscent of when he injured himself. And he was like, damn it, I have no choice but to let my body heal. I can't do anything.
What was nice was the team guys would all come visit us. So all the rope team guys came out, and you know, it was just so good to see them. They would bring me my stuff and Tommy all his gear, so we got our phones back and everything else we needed. Ned had lost his leg and he had gone to Germany for care. So Ned connected me and Tommy with the Weatherman Foundation, the ones that got him out, to see if they would help us. Well, Tommy wasn't approved because his injuries weren't bad enough, but I was. And so this is where we split ways. He'd gone to sleep drunk. The ambulance showed up, I'd fallen asleep. They wake me up in my bed. They put me in a wheelchair and they started to wheel me out. And I'm like, hang on a second, I gotta at least say goodbye to Tommy. And so I woke him up and I just said, I love you, man. And he said, I love you too. That was the last time I saw him. But that was the last thing I said to him in person. And then they rolled me out and they put me in the ambulance, and I had a 50-hour ride in that ambulance to Germany.
I knew I wouldn't see him maybe at all, maybe in a very, very while. And I was very depressed with all these hospital things and insurance and the fact I have to experience all this. And we have to experience all this. And I was thinking about those women who did not have a chance to see their loved ones. So I felt emptiness, like I have no aim in my life anymore. Because when he was here, I was all concentrated on his being well, feeling good, knowing that I'm here and I'm waiting for him. And now there is nothing.
I actually got to fly back on Thanksgiving Day. I arrived in the afternoon. My buddy AJ picked me up, took me straight to a friend's house for a Thanksgiving meal. Super grateful to be home, of course, back in America. Had a great meal, good time with friends, and then went home, went to bed. Couldn't really sleep because of the jet lag. Woke up around 2 o'clock in the morning and had a message from Dave to call him, so I called Super Dave. Just said, hey, sorry Gino, I've got some bad news for you, but unfortunately Tommy was killed in a car crash this morning. He was involved in a head-on collision with another vehicle and lost his life. Nova, our interpreter, was also in the car at the time. He's now in hospital with injuries himself. Tommy was driving the Corch, the car that I had, Moose's old vehicle. Tommy hadn't driven in 10 years, so I don't know if that was a factor. There was probably ice on the road. It's an English drive vehicle, so driver's side's on the opposite side to an American vehicle. Combination of all these different factors. I did ask Dave, hey, had he been drinking? My suspicions were there. Is he drunk driving or something? But I don't necessarily think or believe that that was the reason he crashed. Wasn't on the front line, wasn't in combat, but was in the line of duty. Not the way you would expect to go when you're out there with all those dangers and all the things that we face. That can happen here. So it's a sad way to lose Tommy, but he was literally there from the moment I entered Ukraine to the moment I left. And then it's almost like as soon as I'd left Germany, came back to America, I'm safe and sound, it's just kind of like, all right, I'm out, brother. My time is up.
That's the fucked up thing about war, where it's like, you fight and die. He died honorably. I mean, I know that it could have been cooler where it was like, oh, it could have been died in combat, but it's okay, car accident on the way, it's like, whatever, you're in a combat zone, it's like, shit happens, dude. Shit fucking happens. Like I say, fact or stranger than fiction type shit, where it's like, well, that happens all the time. Where it's like, how many instances of World War II where there was like somebody who just died in a car accident behind the line and they had done so many crazy things in combat. Like, oh, how does he die like that?
Salim called me off the hook at like 3 o'clock in the morning, just sobbing. It didn't register to me at the time. I also had just woken up. Salim's hysterical. Well, I can't start crying right now too. So let me just try to comfort him, get him situated, and then I went to the bathroom and just cried. for hours until the sun came up. It was devastating. It was bad. It hit everybody bad. There wasn't a single person that was okay for like a week.
Det är sånt det It's not can be because we had a lot of plans. That I love him and I will remember. I will remember everything. And I will remember the whole rest of my life.
That's all I got. That's all the torture I got for you. So he texted me on Thanksgiving Day, so this is the day before. And he said, "Happy Thanksgiving, brother, glad you're on your way." And I said, "Landed, missing man, actually got me emotional, flying away from you all. Guess I know what it's like coming back to this world and the distance it creates to being there. The team, the people, my girl, etc. Some goodbyes are harder than others." And he said, "I can imagine. Bro, I'm happy for you though. You deserve the good life." I don't know, that really stuck with me. That was really his last sentiment to me. I don't feel like I deserve anything, but I will receive that blessing and I'll take those words to heart, you know? I just said, yeah, we'll see what I find. Bittersweet, really hope it works out for you too. I know we all got our demons. Just be sure to take care too. I want you back here drinking with me one day. But it won't be. Got to be a pallbearer. His dad was super gracious, super eloquent, really held himself together well, explained Tommy and Tommy's life in a very fun and poignant way.
It was very nice actually, because in fact it was snowing.
The funeral itself was fairly formal, but then once we got to the reception part, it was surprisingly upbeat and jovial, because Tommy was quite a character.
Thomas's father did a great job of letting everyone speak, and that procession took a long time. We didn't over-embellish things, we celebrated the good and the bad as they were.
The funeral in the hall when we were putting his body to rest, that was hard. But after that, it became a celebration. It was awesome to hear everybody tell all the crazy stories that they had to tell.
The impact that you can have sometimes when you don't even know you're making an impact.
The love was so incredibly deep. And he's with me right now. He's right here. He's right in my soul. And will be till I meet him somewhere. I miss my boy, but I'm happy he led the life that he did. Yeah.
He was in the right place at the right time and he did something amazing. And it just proves you never write anybody off, because we've all got our time and our journey, and it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with it. And Tommy did amazing things.
Just one life can make a huge, huge difference.
I think the encouragement from Tommy's life is to understand without being perfect, he could still make such a big difference. He saved my life. He didn't have to follow all the rules, he didn't have to be religious, he didn't have to have the same beliefs as me, he didn't have to stop drinking even. For all his flaws, Tommy showed up when Tommy needed to show up, and he made a difference to me in a profound way that will impact the rest of my life.
Though death seduced me brazenly, my blood seeped in the earth, and earth now muddied me. Her clutches I neglected. For friends, these warriors dead risk her snare as they drag me from the abyss to an empty victory, sought so dearly, not shared by all. Their silent reward to fight another day, to flirt with her once more.
Tommy, it's been 1 year since we took that road to Kupyansk. I'm trying to live up to your blessing. I'm still healing, but besides some minimal nerve pain, my leg is mostly good now. I can walk and run and dance again. I even landed a couple aptly named impossibles at my beloved Central Park with great delight. I've thrown myself back into creative things, building my own studio for art and pottery. Ella and Eliza are well. Thanks to you, I am able to watch them grow in leaps and bounds. Anna went on to join the military. I'm so proud of her, but can think of no better place for a patriot like herself. I returned to Ukraine a fourth time to see our fearless rogue team, to pay tribute to more fallen and witness the continued Russian brutality against innocent souls. The senseless war continues. On my way home, it was good to spend time with your folks and keep your memory alive. I visited your apartment in New York City as I wrestled with doubts about making this documentary. Lo and behold, what did I find there? A live sunflower. To use your words, indicative of our future. I took it as encouragement from you. I'll see you on the other side, brother. I miss you.
Love's embrace, we found our way, two hearts entwined, come what may. But duty calls, I must depart, leaving you, my beating heart. Across the miles, my thoughts will roam, as I embark on this journey alone. Though distance separates our touch, know my love, I'll miss you so much. In the battlefield, I'll stand tall and brave, guarding the peace that we both crave. With every sunrise, with each moon's glow, I'll dream of the day when I'll come home to you. Until that moment, keep me in your heart, together a peace that we both crave. With every sunrise, with each moon's glow, I'll dream of a day when I'll come home to you. Until that moment, keep me in your heart, together again we'll make a fresh start. Time will pass and we'll endure, for love's resilience forever pure.